Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and today I'm going to do the first of a mini video series kind of focused on doing fleet composition. Now, I've had a lot of requests not only for finding good balances in personal fleets, as well as how to build a fleet with friends for specific purposes. Now, today we're going to go ahead and start with a random situation with friends wanting to go out exploring, and what some good options would be for the ships that you could take out in that situation, as well as some of the pros and cons. So let's go ahead and start with 5 players who have aspirations of exploring the verse. Now, in the first scenario, we're going to look at running just one ship for the group, and that would be mounting everyone up in a Kerik. The Kerik is basically the pinnacle of an exploration vehicle. It's built as a UEE Pathfinder, it comes with expanded fuel tanks for long-distance travel, it's got a pretty impressive jump drive that ties into its own computer core that helps you kind of chart those new jumps that you're taking. It's got a sensor suite on board that's designed to help you map your journeys and track your progress, as well as interesting things that you find that you could then sell later for a profit. It's got drones to help you complete whatever task you're doing, retractable cover for the front canopy to help protect during threats, or basically when moving through a debris field, and that doesn't even include the onboard amenities like a med bay, repair area, a 2-tiered bridge with lots of viewing angles, a hangar with a scout ship on board, and a rover. The ship has really everything you need, and it's basically a one-stop shop for exploration, and you should be able to accomplish your goals on this ship. Now, I think using the Kerik, you need to really station your crew based on the situation that you're in. Now, if you can tell that there aren't really any threats in the immediate area, then I would take advantage of running at what I would consider to be like a full exploration efficiency. And that would be having somebody piloting the ship, somebody sitting at the bridge stations monitoring the scans, both for items and for threats that are inbound, having another person at a different station controlling and reading the drones, utilizing someone else at the holotable, reviewing a path to take to try and finally get to where you're going to go, as well as having somebody that's in like a rover type of role, basically somebody who's able to run around and do different things. That last person would be somebody that's working probably in the back of a ship, rerouting power to help you with scanning or engines or whatever you need, shields, ready to hop in a turret if necessary, or potentially even getting into that scout ship if it ends up being needed. Now, these jobs are going to likely change a bit if you find yourself something interesting that you need to explore and that you need to study. So if you do find something, your efforts are probably going to shift a little bit because you're now going to be focusing your scans, basically going from an all-around ping into a focused pie. And you may end up being left vulnerable to attacks. Now, I would say that you probably want to have somebody piloting the ship, somebody controlling the drones, probably 2 people at this point working at scanning stations to quickly analyze and work in different ways and utilize different arrays. And finally, I would deploy that scout ship. And the reason for deploying the scout is for a few reasons. One, you've now got another ship with more scanners capable of helping to determine what you've found and how you can use it. It can move into closer, through like debris fields to make sure that you can actually get a smaller ship in there to take a closer look. It can focus on detecting threats while the main ship is actually working on the item that you're studying. And finally, if there is a threat, it could be enough of a pest to tie up the enemy while your crew then moves into turrets to get ready for action. The ship itself does have some shields, and pretty good ones at that, plus some armor being an anvil ship, so I think it can take a little bit of a pounding with the assistance of the scout ship, trying to help keep it alive for a little bit longer. Now, some of this is going to be about knowing where you're going and making good decisions ahead of time. If you know you're going to be in a low security area, depending on what the scout ship has equipped when we end up seeing that ship developed, you may be better off bringing something more combat oriented like a Merlin. Basically, with this ship, while you have powerful arrays to find points of interest, to be really effective, you're going to have to focus your scanners, and that can leave you in a little bit of trouble. So balancing your jobs is going to be incredibly important. But if done well, 5 people in a Kerik, I think, are going to be able to find incredible success. Now, if you don't own a Kerik among your buddies, that's okay, because there's a lot of ways to be successful, and even the potential to be more efficient. Now, sure, most ships aren't going to carry the same power as the Kerik, but you can split up those responsibilities in a small fleet and move through things pretty quickly. Now, in the same situation where we had 5 people, I think my preferred fleet would include a Freelancer Dur with a pilot and a scan operator, a 315P, a Reliant Sen, and finally a combat effective ship like the Hornet Tracker. Now, the Tracker, I think, is a really nice fit here because without sacrificing the scanning abilities, you can bring a large missile loadout as well as 3 size 3 weapons under the wings and nose, and that makes it a pretty potent threat. Now, the Tracker isn't specifically built with exploration in mind, and range may end up being a problem for the Hornet. But I'm sure you're going to be able to have the ability to swap out some of the avionics and go from that dish being more focused on targets and command and control to really general exploration and scanning. And even if you can't do that, the ship is going to bleed into the exploration category a bit anyways, and it's going to give your fleet a little bit more oomph, so I think it's a really good fit. The Freelancer Dur is going to be the ship that is really doing the bulk of the scanning and recording. It's going to have the most advanced suite out of the ships that you have in your fleet. It has the second person to really focus on that while the pilot is flying the ship, and is likely going to be the hub for providing direction to the others, unless you end up delegating that CNC responsibility to the tracker. The Dur also has a fairly decent cargo zone in the back, so if you find valuables along the way, you can store them to make a profit off of that. Or if you want to put a Dragonfly on board, you should have those capabilities to do that. Now, then you have the 315P. It's smaller, it's faster, it's capable of getting into places the Dur may not based on size alone, and depending where you're headed, even in wide open space, it still ends up being a capable explorer, able to explore other areas in the sector than the Dur, meaning you're doubling up your efforts and hitting multiple locations in the same system, and that's where some of that efficiency comes from. The reason I added the Reliant xi'an to this party is because while it's technically a research ship, it should still have some exploration abilities that it can handle. So it can again help to speed things up by scanning for various things. But more than that, it gives you more advanced capabilities by helping you analyze things in more detail. So the Freelancer or the 315 finds something interesting. You end up calling over the Reliant xi'an, let that pilot do work on analyzing what it is, how it can benefit you. You can even move on and look at other things while the xi'an's spending a little bit of time on whatever you found. And if that information ends up being worth selling, you can use that to your advantage. Now, when a threat does show up, the tracker is going to be able to detect that nice and early. It has the firepower to engage while coordinating the other ships, which is a great perk. The 315P is fast, it's agile, and it's not super powerful, but it could certainly help, and the Freelancer's no slouch either. Being fairly durable, it has a second person that can run to the turret, and the pilot has control of pretty big guns and a fair amount of missiles. The xi'an can try and help, but honestly, it's not going to do a whole lot. So when it comes to a small exploration fleet, this is about as good as it gets in my mind, and it's something that plays on the specifics of the ships that I mentioned to give you overall effectiveness and efficiency through diversity of the ships. Now, the one area I think this fleet is going to have some lack of ability in is going to be with planetary exploration. Now, ships are going to be able to fly around and do scanning, but once they find a point of interest, finding a landing spot may be difficult, and you're not actually going to be carrying any land vehicles unless you do take a Dragonfly along in the Freelancer. Now, it's not the end of the world, but it is worth noting, so if you do plan to go planetside on your voyage, you may want to consider mixing this fleet up a little bit by maybe dropping the xi'an and the 315 and going with another Freelancer Dur with 2 people on board. Now, I think that limits you a little bit in space, but I think that helps you out a little bit more on the planet. Now, the Kerik, by comparison, has the rover on board by default, so while it's not going to be in as many places at once on a planet's surface, and it may have a harder time landing than a smaller ship would, it could deploy both the rover and the scout to find things, as well as having the main ship fly around and look for those. Again, it kind of comes down to a little bit of a trade-off, and where you personally see the value and how you want to utilize those ships. Overall, there's really countless combos that you could take for this type of thing, and the number of people in your fleet is going to have an impact, as well as what ships people actually own. But I did want to present you with a few options to consider as we move closer to exploration being in the game. Now, I hope you enjoyed this type of video, because doing these types of videos are a lot of fun for me, and they open up some great consideration and end up getting people thinking outside of the box a little bit. So if you have fleet compositions that you would want to use, please put them in the comments. I'd love to see them. I'm going to have a lot more of these videos coming, but if you want to present scenarios, go ahead and toss them in the comments, and most likely the highest liked comment is going to be the one that I do next. So if you guys have questions, let me know. I appreciate you all watching. Stay tuned for more coming very soon, and have a wonderful day. Take care.